All right. Welcome everybody to today's workshop. And in today's workshop, we are going to be working on analyzing data with Excel, right? So to get started, I'll go ahead and share with you guys the deck that we put together, just like a couple of things we need to cover today, just to like help you guys get started, right? So I'll go ahead and share my screen so everyone can see my screen and I can walk you guys through what you expect. All right, so I believe everyone can see my screen right now. So today, like I said, what we're going to be covering is basically essentially data analytics with Excel. And some of you guys already know what Excel is, some might not know, but however, I just think it's proper to introduce Excel as a tool before we start analyzing data. Can you all mute your screen, your mics, please? Okay, never mind. I think I did that. All right. So for those that know what Excel is, or for the ones that don't know what Excel is, so Microsoft Excel is one of the top tools for data analysis. So this is like one of the most required tools. They expect you to know how to leverage to analyze data when you start working in the real world. So if your goal is to become a data analyst, a data scientist, yes, Excel is one of the tools. They expect you to be able to crunch data, wrangle data using Excel. And Excel is by Microsoft. It has been in existence for long. However, Excel is used for multiple stuff, but we are going to be focusing on using Excel with data analysis because they use Excel for finance, bookkeeping, and all. But these functions and these strategies are totally different. So we're going to be focusing more on data analysis with Excel. And like I explained, Excel is like one of the mostly used tools for data analysis. Data analysis with Excel serves as a precursor to data science with R or Python. And you need to learn the essential functions used to analyze data. All right, couple of the functions we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be looking at how we filter data, how we sort data, formulas, various formulas like text formulas, mathematic formulas, logical formulas, and all that stuff, conditional formatting, charts, pivot tables, what if analysis, and data analysis toolkit. So the first thing, every time you get a project, for instance, let me give you guys a scenario. You got a job you got a job offer and your title says data analyst or data analytics professional, or any professional that has to analyze data, right? You get to work and boom, you got an email and it was just a couple of data sets and you were asked to clean the data. So I need to call this out because a lot of you guys always have the impression that once you start working, there's going to be maybe training or whatnot. No, it doesn't happen like that in tech, especially in data science field. We get you on the job, we offer you the letter, we give you a couple of days just to familiarize yourself with the company's services or product, boom, and they want to test you right away. Like, hey, here's the data set, we want you to clean the data. They want to know how much strategies, how much approach, how much methodologies you can apply to those data sets, right? So when I talk about data cleaning, there's a lot we do when we clean data. And just for you guys to know, we spend 60% or 70% cleaning up data. That is where the bulk of the job is. Even when you go for interviews, sometimes they ask you just verbally to tell them some of the cleaning techniques you apply, things like removing duplicates, things like replacing values, sorting, filtering, and all that. So you need to be very conversant with data cleaning because that's where you're going to be spending majority of the time in. It can be with Excel, it can be with Tableau, Power BI, Python. They are all different tools. However, the process is the same. The same way we're going to remove duplicates in Excel, we still need to remove duplicates in Python. And it goes on and on and on. So a couple of things you always look out to when you clean data, or the tools we're going to be using to clean data in Excel is going to be the data pacing, which is the text to column. We're going to be deduping, which is removing duplicates, treating blanks, replacing values, sorting, filtering, data types, spell checks, and all that. And the next one is going to be formatting. How do we format stuffs in Excel? How do we insert table? How do we merge and center, text wrap, copy, format, conditional formatting, cells, styles, and all that stuff, right? So once we're done with the data cleaning exercise, the next thing we want to do is data leveraging various data analytics functions. And we have a lot of data analytics functions. We have like text functions, we have the math functions, we have the date and time. So these are the mostly used functions for data analysis. So that's why I created this to like help you walk through. We're gonna look at the lookup functions, then we're gonna look at leveraging the data analysis tool pack in Excel. Right? So once we're done with that, hopefully time permits us, but I want to go as fast as possible. And you guys are going to get the recording. So, I mean, like I said, if you're not catching up with me, you can always go back to the recording and try to practice. Another thing I want to let you guys know, it is okay to always attend webinars, workshops, and all. However, if your goal is to become a professional in this field, and every time you attend webinars or workshop, you don't practice along, it's not going to help you, right? So the goal is to always practice. And even when you're done with this and you feel like, hey, I think I want to apply these based on the type of data sets we use today. I want to apply these with maybe healthcare data, HR data set and all. You can reach out to me. I can send you data sets and you just practice along and see how best you can come up with like the solutions, okay? So without further ado, I'm just gonna go ahead and bring out the spreadsheet we're gonna be using. But before I go ahead, I'll just try to like do some housekeeping, check if we have any questions in the charts, and feel free to leave your questions in the chat. So like I said, I wanna try as much as possible to cover this at in 1 hour so we can have time for question and answer in the next 30 minutes. All right. Let me go back to the chat box and see if we have questions so that way we can actually analyze that. All right, let me go here. I can't even find the chat box. Okay, cool. For those that just joined, the link to download the data sets is right in the chat box. All you need to do is click on the link and download the data sets. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. Yeah, someone is typing, someone is doing the same thing they did the last time. I don't know who is pressing something, but it's giving me a line on this screen. That is exactly what happened the last time. So please, if you don't mind, can you just make sure you're not annotating or like pressing anything on your keyboard. I don't know why Zoom permits that, but that is just awful of Zoom. Okay, so let me go ahead with the data sets and let's get started. All right. Okay, so like I said, let me go here, reduce this. All right, so like I said, we're going to start today with the math function. And that is technically for the math function, like I said, we have 5 major functions we leverage when we analyze data that has to do with text. So before we start analyzing data, I just want you guys to launch Excel. And once you launch Excel, you're going to see a blank sheet like this, right? So I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough of how Excel is being used. At the bottom, where you have the sheet number or the sheet name, you can always right click and rename the sheet. You can just name it whatever you want to call it and click on enter. So once you do that, that automatically names the sheet. And to the left-hand side, we have the row numbers, and to the top, we have what we call the column letters or alphabets, right? And at the top of Excel, we have what we call the toolbar. And for data analysis, we work a lot with the home tab, we work a lot with the inserts, the formulas, as well as the data. So the data is going to be one of your go-to tools for exploring your data sets and applying various analytics functions and strategies. Okay, so we're going to be leveraging everything. This is just a quick walkthrough. And every time you have an Excel sheet, in an Excel sheet, we have what we call the rows and the columns. Then when you have multiple sheets in Excel, just like this, we have, we call them a workbook, right? So now we have multiple sheets, and this is considered an Excel workbook, right? So one sheet is considered a single sheet with rows and columns, so we call it table. And in every workbook, we have what we call multiple worksheets, right? You can always add new worksheet by clicking on this little plus sign at the bottom. And once you click on it, it gives you a new tab. You just go ahead and rename that. Okay, so that is just an introduction part, nothing special. So I'll just go ahead and close this. All right, let's start with the mass function. So majority of the time, once you get your data set, it just comes like blank, right? So what I did first was just to go ahead and I did a little formatting just to be able to like familiarize myself with the data set. So all I did was just to select the cell where something like this, you have maths, and it comes like this, right? So to convert something like this with this, all you need to do is select the cell. So every section or every lines or every space in between the lines is considered what we call a cell in Excel. So when I say select the cell, I mean just click on any of the space in between the lines, okay? So we want to select the cell and we want to make sure we're right on the home tab. Once we get to the home tab, what I want to do is I want to select the fill color, and this gives you the background, right? The next one gives it the font color. So you can change it, whatever works for you. So in this context, let's just go ahead and use the fill color orange. And now I have this orange. The next thing I want to change the font color, I can click on this one and it changes to white. However, you can change the fonts, which is basically the text. You can change it to whatever style you want, and you can increase the size to whatever size you want. That was exactly how I got this, okay? So that's just a simple illustration of formatting your Excel. So the next thing I want to do is I want to select the cell that we want to work with, right? And the next thing I want to do, you see how the score is aligned to the left-hand side and the numbers are aligned to the right-hand side, right? And to, in the second column, we have the states and the names. Sorry, this is supposed to be the sales reps. So, and for this one, we have the sales reps and the names of the sales reps all to the right-hand side, right? So let me just go ahead and just write in names. So I just want to select it and put everything in the middle. All you have to do is select the cell, make sure you're right on the home tab, and you want to go all the way to the middle where we have these 6 icons. These are literally used to align your text. So I want to push my text all the way to the middle. So I just want to go ahead and click on it and everything is on the middle. And you can always reduce the size by selecting any of the lines. And once you pull the size together, it reduces the size, right? So that's just basic housekeeping on Excel. So now you got this, you started working as a data analyst, and your first job was to help analyze data. They gave you like the names of students that actually took an examination, and here is the grade, or here are the grades of the students, right? Let's just say you got a job as a data analyst in a school, and your goal was to analyze this data. And just like based on the score you provided, your ask is to find the sum, which is the total score, the average score, the student with the highest and the lowest, right? But in Excel, we use what we call functions, right? And to get the score, and why do we use the functions? We use the functions because majority of the time you're working with big data sets. We have a lot of rows and columns, so you can't keep aggregating them manually. So you just need the functions, and once you enter the function, every time you get a new data set, you can automatically click on the functions, right? Sorry, I don't know who unmuted themselves, but please mute yourself. All right. So let's go ahead and actually calculate the function. To use the function, every time you want to use the formula in Excel, right on the taskbar where we have the home, you have an option of selecting formulas. And right here, you're going to see various types of formulas we have. We have the financial, you might be a data analyst and you might be analyzing financial data. So you need a lot of financial formulas and all that stuff, right? So it depends on the type of data you're analyzing. But in this situation, we just need the basic function, which are the math function. So you can easily click on this auto sum, the first one, click on the little downward arrow and you're gonna see all the functions we have, right? So if that's what you want to click on it and you go about that. However, if you have to write the functions out yourself, every time you need to write a function in Excel, you need to start with what we call the equal sign. And once you do that, in this context, we want to calculate the sum of the total score, right? So the next thing is to put the function called sum. And you see how Excel literally pops up the functions we have once you start typing. So you can easily click on the one you actually want, and that way you don't need to type in full, especially when the function is super lengthy, right? We have a lot of functions, trust me, but these are the one, majority of the functions you barely use, so you want to focus more on the functions we use on a daily basis. So I'll go ahead and click on sum, and the next thing it says is number 1, 2, 3 to the end. That means it's asking you to select all the numbers you want to aggregate and get the result of the sum. So in this context, we want to aggregate this number. So you see how I move my mouse right to the top and I hold down my mouse and I drag all the way to the bottom. So once you're done, you always close your functions with the closing bracket and you click on enter. So once you enter, you automatically see the results and you see where the function is like actually showing up. So every time we get a new data set, for instance, you can always insert a new cell by right-clicking and insert, right-click and insert. So let's right now, yeah, someone is pressing that stuff again. So right now the total sum is 591. Let's just imagine we having a new student joining the school, and maybe the student's name is called Carol, and the student took the exam and the student scored 70. Let's see what happens to this number. So once you click on enter, it automatically updates. So that is the job. The goal is to automate tasks. That's why we use the functions. So if another student joined and the student's name is Jack and the student scored maybe like 40, and you click on enter, it just keeps updating it. You don't need to always like put in the function from time to time, right? So the next one, we're just gonna go ahead. We wanna check the average. To check the average, we're doing similar stuff and we're just gonna click on average. We'll select the whole cell and close the bracket and it gives you the average. So the average, when we talk about average, we're talking about the total sum, which is the aggregate of all the scores divided by the number of samples. The number of samples is just basically how many students we have. It can be 10, it can be 20, it can be 15. So Excel automatically does the job for you. The mean, every time you hear mean, we're talking about the lowest. That simply means among all the students, which students scored the lowest score, right? So but just by looking at the data, you can easily guess 40. However, this is because the data set is small, right? If the data set is super huge, which is what you're going to be working with in the real world, definitely you cannot guess it. That's why we always use the function. So I'll go ahead and do the same stuff and I'll select everything and click on enter, and automatically it gives you the mean. So every time you hear average or mean, MEAN, that is the same thing, right? If you hear mean, they're talking about the lowest. It can be the lowest other quantity. It can be the lowest, maybe number of patients that visited the hospital. It can be the lowest employee and stuff like that, depending on the data set. The next one is the max. Max is considered the highest. So you're just going to do the same stuff and voila, that's it. So automatically you have calculated the sum, the average, the mean, and the max. Okay, so let's move to the next one, which is going to be the text function. You're going to be working a lot with text function. And in today's exercise, you're going to see how the text functions comes in. I know we have questions. I'm going to try as much as possible to cover all this before we start the task, so that way I can go into the questions much later. All right, so majority of the time you get text data just like this. So here is like, I don't know how to minimize this stuff. Okay. So here's an example of a data set, right? So you see how the first name, the first letter of the first name is capitalized. The next letter is small letters, capitalized. You see how the address, everything is small letters. So sometimes we deal with consistency. We want you, I mean, just by looking at the data set, I might just ask the junior data analyst, we want you to capitalize all the addresses. You see how everything came in like a small letter, and we want you to capitalize that. If you don't know the functions to use, that is where the problem is, right? So let's go back to the text. So the first one we're going to look at is the upper, right? So the upper is the function we use in changing the text to all capital letters, right? So for instance, we want to change this to capital letter. Everything should be spelled out in capital letter, and it goes on and on and on. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the equal sign. Remember, like I said, every time you need to write a function, you start with the equal sign. So once you write the equal sign, the next thing is, what is the name of the function you want to use? That means you have to be pretty conversant with all the functions for you to be able to know the functions you want to use, right? And I'm going to send you guys this stuff just to like help you guys, I mean, get you guys started, because I mean, there's still a lot to do, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and I'll type upper, because I know that is the function we use to convert all letters into capital letters. And you see how I type the upper and it's asking me to select the text, right? The text is located right here. And I want to close the bracket, click on enter. So the good part with Excel is, you see how we have the super lengthy stuff and we want to do it for all the names. The good part with Excel is, once you get the first function, all you need to do is what we call autofill, right? To do autofill, make sure you're selecting the first cell with the formula, and you want to move your mouse all the way to the right-hand side. You see how we have the plus sign that is black, right? We have another plus sign that shows white. This one, you don't want that. So you want it to be black, and you want to double click on that, and it automatically fills the whole cell, even if you have 1 million rows of data, right? So that is how powerful functions are, right? So you want to make sure you get the first one, and for every other rows of data, you just want to double click and it automatically fills the data, right? So for the sake of time, we're going to do the same thing. If you want to switch from small letter, if you want to switch the characters to small letters, we use the function called proper. So I already did that here. It's just the same thing. Once you put the function, you want to select the cell and we want to autofill, right? However, some of them have small letters as the first letter. You see David has like the small d and all that. Majority of the time, we always want to use the first letter as capital letter. So that is where we use the propel. So majority of the time in real world, we work with the propel function, okay? So to do that, the same thing, you just want to type the propel and you want to double click. The next one is the search. So sometimes they want you to search on certain maybe letters, like what is the number of the letter in this particular letter S, for instance, or letter A. What is the number of letter A in this function? And in this part, we use what we call the search function, right? So the search function is basically using the search, which is the name of the function or the keyword for the function, and you want to select exactly what you want to look for, in the text. So for instance, you're asked to find the number of A in this text. And if the text is super lengthy, it's going to give you the number, right? To do that, all we literally need to do is just go ahead and type search. And once you do that, open the bracket. You select the actual letter which you want to search for, and you select E comma, and you select the actual text, right? So we already have that in the first one, which is the good part is every time you get the Excel sheet, once you click on it, you're going to see the function appears, right? So there's one thing to write the function, and there's another thing for you to be able to read the function. So looking at this function, you see equal to search, that means they were trying to search for something, A3. So you want to go all the way to letter A at the top, and you want to go to 3, right? So that's A3. That means we're searching for A in B3. It says letter B, and this is number 3. So we're searching for A in sales reps, and it gives us number 2. And that's true. If we count A 1, 2, that's letter A. So we're going to do the same thing. We'll fill up the whole stuff. And if it doesn't, if it gives you a wrong value, that means it didn't find it. For instance, the D, we're searching for D, and in the name right here, we don't have any D. So keep that at the bottom of your hat. The third one is going to be the len. The len is used to count the total number of characters. Like you want to count John, you already know the total number of characters is 4, which is JOHN, and on. So the same thing, you're just going to write the len function. You're going to write the actual, you select this text. And once you get the first one, you autofill the rest. Yeah, I think it's broken right here, but I can just put it where len. And another thing you notice, sometimes you work with Excel, you try to use the function. It's not because your function is wrong. It just happens in Excel. It's kind of buggy. So sometimes you have issues. All you have to do is make sure you're saving as you walk along. And once you save, you can always close the Excel sheet and restart it. It's going to fix that. Okay, here's another one. Concatenate function is something we use all the time, right? You see how you have the first name and you have the last name right here, right? And in most cases, they might ask you to find the total, maybe the total orders or the total sales by customers, which is an aggregate of the first name and last name, right? And to do that, when the data comes in like this and it has the first name separated from the last name, you have to use what we call the concatenate function to merge them together. And to do that, you're going to start with the equal sign. We're going to write out concat. And we're going to select the text. So we want to concatenate this, comma, and we want to concatenate the next one. Close it right here. So I did this because I wanted to show you guys something. You see how you did this, and everything is like squished up, like there's no space in between the first and the last name, right? To fix that, what you're going to do is you're going to go back to the function and right in between. So I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite it. So after the first, after you select the first text, which is always the first name, you want to put comma, and you want to open the, you want to use the double quotation mark, and you want to put space in between, close it, and now you want to select the last one, which is this. So once you close the bracket, it gives it the space in between, right? And you're just going to go ahead and autofill, and that fixes it. Right? And this one is very important as well. We want to use the substitute function. This we use a lot whenever we want to update a student's record, a record, right? It can be a student, it can be a customer. Maybe for instance, Jane actually got married and she should change her last name, and they just want you to go right in the database, extract the data in Excel, and you want to change the data, the name from John Smith to Jane Smith, right? To do that, you're going to use the function called substitute. Once you do the substitute, you're going to select the cell, which is where we have the text, and we want to call the current name, which is John. And we always put the text in double quotation mark because these are considered strings, right? So keep that at the bottom of your mark, sorry, at the back of your mind. When you use the integers, which are the numbers, we don't use the double quotation mark. However, when we use the text, we use the double quotation mark. right? So once you write that out, it's going to give you the new name, and that's where we have the genes made, right? And we have another one, the left, the right, and the mid. So these ones are basically used to extract words from text, right? You can use that with the date function. You can use that with text. You can use that with numbers. So it just counts to the right. Sorry, you see how we have the left and we're looking at B21, right? So we want to look at B21, which is student. So we want to take the left, only the letters that are on the left side of B21. So that's going to give us STUD, right? Because we specify like go to the left hand, sorry, use the left function and go to B21. That's where we have students, and we want you to pull the data or the record or the characters, the letter characters, only the first four. So it's going to count from the left hand side and it's going to give us the actual value. That's why we have the stored. And we do that the same thing for the right hand side. However, for the middle function, we always specify two numbers. The first one is just telling us we want you to pull the record after the right hand side and the middle number, right? So in this case, after the left function. So after the first four, we want you to give us the middle number, which is D. That's why it gave us D. So the next one we're going to look at before we start with the hands-on, we're going to look at the text function. Text is very, very important. If you go on Excel sheet and you just click on equal to now, boom, it's going to give you today's date and it's going to give you your actual time. Whatever location, whatever region you are, it's going to pull that record for you outrightly, right? If you want to check what the date is just today without the time, then you want to use a function called today, and voila, it's going to give you what the date is, right? So now we always have dates in our data. However, when we start analyzing data, they might ask you to maybe like show sales by months or show sales by the week of the day, right? But keep in mind, you have the date function. That means you have to extract the months from the dates, right? And to do that, we have two ways. In this context, you can use the month function. And once you use the month function, it's going to give you the exact, the number of the months. However, majority of the time, we don't deal with the number of the month. We want the actual months, right? So if you use this function, the equal to month function, or the equal to day function, or the equal to year or whatever, it gives you the numbers. However, if you want the actual letters spelled out, we use what we call the text function, right? So you're just going to write out the text, open the bracket, and it's going to ask you for the value. For instance, we want to get the actual, maybe the actual month from this one. So once I click on this, then it's going to ask you to actually put the exact month. So in this context, we want the MMM. Sorry, I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3. And once you click on it, it gives you the full, right? April. So if you want it abbreviated, you're going to reduce this to 3. So that's what we have here. If you want the full month, you're going to put the letter 4. Right? The same thing with the day, you're just going to change it to DDD. Year, you're going to change it to YYY. So whatever works for you. And another important factor in date is sometimes with the start date and the end date, they expect you to get the difference. For instance, I work in healthcare, right? They deal with patients, the discharges, the admissions and all that. So just by giving me the dates that has to do with like the patient's admission dates and the patient discharge date, we can find the duration of stay of that patient. So when they give you the date function and they tell you like, oh, we want you to analyze the data and we want to see the duration of stay for individual patients, right? So that means you have to use what we call the days function. And with the days functions, you can substitute the end date. Sorry, you can subtract the end date from the start date, and you're going to get the actual duration. The same thing applies to customers. Sometimes you have maybe when a customer bought something and when the order was actually shipped. We want to see like how long does it take the company to ship out orders. The same thing is applicable to customer service. Things like you guys have like companies like T-Mobile, AT&T. In Nigeria, we have things like MTN, I don't know, MTN, whatever, or I don't know their stuff, but I know MTN. So once you get that, maybe when the customer actually joined the company or bought the network, and when the customer actually exited from the company. So these ways, that's how you find duration, even from like birth dates to like death dates. You're going to see how long that person was actually a customer before the person passed away. Okay, so let me show you guys how the data comes so we can start working on hands-on, right? So here's an example of a data set that was actually collected by the sales reps. However, this data resides in what we call Salesforce, which is a CRM system. You guys might have a lot different ones, but they do the same job. It doesn't matter. I was working in Nigeria before I moved out. So we have similar softwares and all that stuff. And now they extracted this data set for you. The first thing I'm going to notice as an experienced data analyst or data scientist is the address, right? Because sometimes they give you the data set and they expect you to analyze the data without telling you what to do. They just give you the data set and tell you like, oh, go and analyze this data, right? So once I see this data, I know like the address, the one column has all the address, and usually we always analyze data either by city, by state, by zip code or whatnot. So the first thing you're going to have at the back of your mind is, how do you paste this data? When I say paste, I mean split this data, maybe have the address separated from the city, from the state, from the zip code, right? To do that in Excel, what you need to do is we're going to create multiple columns. And to create a column, all you have to do, because I want to create a column after this, right? So I'm going to click on the column D, right click right there, and I'll click on insert. It automatically creates a blank column, right? I can reduce the size this way, and I'm going to create at least 3 because I want to break it down. The first one is going to be the column for the address. The second one is going to be the city. The third one, I want the state, and the fourth one, I want the zip code. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to click on insert. I'm going to insert about 5 just to be on the safe side. If you don't need all 5 of them, you can always delete them. All right, I think I'm good right here. So the next thing we want to do when you want to like paste your data is just to make sure you're right. You're going to click on the data tab, right? So now we have the data type. The next thing we want to do is we want to select the column, and we want to click on this one that says text to column, right? But before we do that, every time you have data sets like this all squished up in one column, you want to find out what is separating the individual columns, right? In this context, it's been separated by comma. You see how the address is separated by comma from the city, but between the state and the zip code, the separation is a space. So that is a separation. Sometimes you can see like the hyphen, sometimes you can see like the forward slash, backward slash. So you want to take note of that. So once you take note of that, the next thing is to click on text to column. So the next thing we want to do is we want to select the tab that says Delimiter, right? Because that's where you're going to specify what is separating your stuff. So once you do that, you're going to click on next. And in this case, what is separating our text is the comma. So if it's not comma, you can select other and you can specify whatever is separating it. But in this context, it's separated by comma, and we want to select comma, and we want to click on next. And it's going to ask you to select the destination you want. Right now, it's pointing to cell C1. So it's telling you it's going to start here. So that means it's going to replace that. However, if you don't want that, then you want to select a separate cell. I want it to start right here. And I'm gonna go back here and just click on finish. Perfect. So you see how it separated everything for me? It gave me the address. So now I can just write this as address. And now I can call these cities. Now we still have to do this one right here because you see this one is separated by space. So we're just gonna do the same thing, select the whole cell, text to column, next, and in this context, we're gonna select space. So once we do that, it's gonna go ahead and replace that and it's gonna give us the states. And now we have the zip code. So now we can delete the blank cells we don't want. So I'll go ahead and delete this and we can delete the actual column that has everything. Voila. So now you have the text. All right. Oh, I think he broke it down. Anyways, I'm just gonna have it here. Address, cities, states. Okay. So now we have, let's just assume we have everything up and running. So now you can check the other amounts by state. You can check the other amount by zip code, by cities and all that, right? And in this case, the next thing you want to do is you want to check for what we call the data type. Every time you have data, they expect you to fix it. This is supposed to be other amount, right? Amount is represented as currency. So you want to go there and fix it. To fix it, you want to click on the home tab and you want to go right here where we have the general. You want to select currency and that automatically fixes it for you. So if the next question is we want you to analyze the other amount by months, right? The actual month, we want to see the months we perform the best. So remember, that's where you're going to use the function that we use for the date, right? So remember, nobody is going to tell you what functions you need to use. That is where they expect you to use your expertise, right? So if you don't know what to do, that's where the problem is. So now I can extract the month from the date for all the data sets, and that's why you see them right here. Okay, so now you see we have the months, and if they ask you for the year, you can do the same thing and you're gonna get the year, right? So now you can analyze your data and you can plot a chart just by clicking on this and clicking on this. Sorry, just go back. So we wanna select this and I wanna select this right here and I wanna select this and I wanna click on, and I wanna click on insert. Now I want to select the charts. I just want to see the performance of by months. So once I select the chart, it automatically goes ahead and it creates the chart we want, right? But I mean, it's moving slowly, but we're going to cover that in a bit. Okay, good. So the next thing we want to do, if the question says we want to see the top 10 customers with the highest order quantity. So remember, highest, you're going to use the max function. If we say lowest, you're going to use the min function. But remember, the case says the customer. So now we need to concatenate the first and last name so that way we can have everything aggregated in one column. So that's why I said you're not going to be told what to do. But once you get familiar with the functions, then definitely you're going to know what to do. Customers. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'll use the concatenate function. Once you do that, we'll ask you to select. We're going to do the same thing, space, space. And now we're going to select the second one. Click on it, boom. And you see how lengthy this data set is? You're just going to go ahead and click on it. So now you have the customer. So we've done a lot of data cleaning just with this small data set. The first one, we paste the address column. The second one, we actually fixed the data type. The third one, we extracted the months from the dates. The fourth one, we concatenated. And see where we have the time as well. If the question says we want you to aggregate the data, we want to see the order by seconds. then that means you have to multiply by 60. If they ask you, they want to see it by, sorry, by minutes, multiply by 60 or divide by 60, and it goes on and on and on. So there's a lot of things you're going to do just with the little data set they send to you. They expect you to do a lot of exploratory data analysis and do a lot of feature engineering. That's what we call it in machine learning, right? So you're going to create data for the data that doesn't exist by doing the same thing we just did, just to like make it better, right? So let's look at the second one. So that is for the text data, right? And the next thing is I want to advise, or I want to provide to you guys recommendation. The next thing is some people always ask, how do you know what data you put on your dashboard, right? So once you clean up your data, maybe you've done your analysis, you see the total sum, the average, the mean, the max, and all that stuff, which you can just go all the way to the bottom. And to get to the bottom of any data sets, no matter the data sets you're using, you want to click on the cell, you want to click on Command, Shift, and the downward arrow, and it automatically goes to the last cell, right? You want to do the same thing if you want to go back up. You want to select Control, Shift, upward arrow, and it takes you back to the top, okay? So you can go downwards and you can actually go ahead and do the sum, which is going to be the sum, open the bracket. So whenever you're working with the super lengthy data, it's hard to go back and select the whole cell, right? But keep in mind, the first row of every cell, it's always the column name, right? So you just know you want to select the column H, right? So the second one is where the data always starts. So you want to select the H2 equal to, and you want to click on the last one. So it automatically selects everything for you. So this has like 1,000 rows of data. So it gives you the total sum. And if you ask for the average, the mean, the max, you're going to do the same thing, right? Just keep in mind, every time you want to aggregate anything, you always start with the column number and 2, because that's where the rows start counting, okay? So, and another thing, you see how we have small letters for this address. If they want you to capitalize it, you're going to create another column, inserts. Let's just go ahead and do that real quick. So we're just going to go ahead and do the insert equal to, in this context, let's use the purple. And select the text, close it, click on it, and it changes everything from small letters to capitalizing the first letter as for all the states. So that's how you're going to keep doing your stuff. So they expect you to always check your data and come up with the strategies to explore, crunch, and like clean up the data sets, right? So I think that's all we're going to do for this one. Let's check the second one because I want to try to cover it soon. So you see how sometimes the data comes in number format. In this case, you can do like the sum, the average, the mean, the max. However, when it comes in the form of text, you see we don't have any calculation right here, then there's a different way you're going to go about that, right? But before we do that, let me show you guys. So this is where we're going to introduce what we call the pivot table, right? So pivot table is one thing, great tool they expect every data scientist or data analyst to know how to leverage, because that's how you do what we call the ad hoc analysis, right? So for instance, this is enrollment data, right? For maybe people with a healthcare membership, or it can be anything, maybe people with like MTN SIM cards and all that, right? And for every enrollment, the organization has different stages. It can be enrolled, maybe they submitted their application, maybe when they contacted them, they weren't interested anymore and they changed the status to like closed lost, and it goes on and on and on. And these were the campaigns, how they came in to find the organization, maybe through flyers, through social media, through PPC, which is considered pay-per-click, through videos, maybe through YouTube and all, right? So first thing I want to do right here, you see how some of them are all capitalized, some of them are small letters, and it goes on and on and on and on, right? So I'm going to do something right here real quick. I'm just going to leave it. All right, so to fix this, let's just do it real quick. Inserts. Now I want to call this city. And now we're just going to use the purple because that's like the most appropriate. select this cell, sorry. Select the text, close it. Oh, I think that's where the problem is. So yeah, so sometimes you guys get issues like this from time to time. Like I said, Excel acts up. Once you try to change it from maybe general to text and it doesn't fix it, then you might want to close your whole computer and start all over. But I mean, I've showed you guys how to do that with multiple data. So I'm just gonna go ahead just because of time. And we don't have time to spread it. And right here we have the states, right? So we can, they might want to see how many of maybe the customers actually enrolled, how many submitted application. So remember, you cannot use the sum in this part. So we're going to introduce what we call the pivot table. Right? So to introduce the pivot table, I'm going to select. So for instance, the goal is to find out or to have you find out how many of the customers actually enrolled for the plan, how many submitted. So we want to see the breakdown by all the stages. And when you keep scrolling, there's no how you're going to find out, right? But the first thing before we go about that, let me show you how to filter your data. So sometimes you want to check the data real quick and see. In this case, we don't know how many stages we have. I can see enrolled, I can see submitted, close loss, but I can't see every other thing until I keep scrolling. To fix that, you're just going to select the whole cell, click on data, and now we want to click on filter. So you want to add a filter, and once you do that, you can select the filter and it automatically shows you every category you have in individual column. So now I can see everything. We have canceled, we have closed loss, this enrolled prospect, and I think we have about 7 or 8. So now I can see. And by looking at this, that can tell me like, oh, this is the right visual to represent your data. Because when it's like more than 5, you cannot represent your visual or your data in like maybe a pie chart, right? So that's the essence of the visual, just to like get maybe familiar with like what you have on your columns or your rows and all that. Okay, just by clicking on this, you see how we have CA representing California, and we have California spelled in full. That means I have to fix this issue. We have Florida, we have Florida. If not, it's gonna give us a different number for Florida, spelled FL as the abbreviation, and Florida. You see this one, we have Idaho, ID, and we have IID. So you have to, these are the things the filter helps you to know, like, oh, there are some things that are not maybe consistent, you have to fix that. So in situations like this, I want to fix this by finding California and replacing it with CA, right? And you can also check it real quick. So let me click right here. I want to uncheck everything, and I want to only see the performance for the state of California. So I'm going to click California, and it tells me we have 1,400, just look at the bottom, 1,405 record. So let me see what we have for California spelled out in full, right? So it tells me we only have 1. That means you're going to find this one and we want to replace it with this one, right? To do that, I'm just going to go ahead and select all. So now I want to use find and replace. To find and replace, you want to use the command H, the control H. So we're going to use control H to find and replace. So now I want to find California, and you're going to make sure you're spelling it out correctly. And I want to replace all. So I don't want to replace it with video. I want to replace it by CA, right? So I'm going to replace all. So what Excel is going to do is it's going to find it and it's going to replace it for me, right? So once it does that, you're going to do the same thing for Florida. You're going to find it, you're going to replace it, right? So now the next thing we want to do, let's introduce the pivot table, so that way we can have the aggregate count of enrolled. Just by looking at it, you can know like how many cities maybe enrolled, total number of enrolled by states, by maybe dates, by campaigns and all that. So to introduce the pivot table, to select your wholesale, just go on the left-hand side at the top. You want to click on this icon, right? So the next thing we want to do is we want to click on inserts. And now we want to click on pivot table. So automatically it's going to select the whole cell for you, and you want to say yes. Make sure it's in new worksheet and click on OK. So it's gonna go do its stuff, and now it created a new sheet for you. And now we want to rename these pivots just to make sure we're not mixing up stuffs, right? So this is the pivot table for the enrollment data, right? So now we want to see how many enrollments we had, how many submitted, and how many, all the stages. So let's go ahead. Now you have all your columns at the top under the field name, and you have 4 different categories. The first one is the filter. The second one is the column. The third one is the rows, and we have the values. And what you're expected to do is to drag any of the columns you want to analyze and drop it in any of the 4 at the bottom, right? So let's start with stages. We want to see the total customers that enrolled, that submitted application, that was closed, lost, and all. So to do that, we're going to drag the stage. I want to drop it right at the rows. To drag, just, sorry, just hold down your mouse, select the stage, drag, and drop. So it automatically gives you the rows. Now I want to see the total count. So every time we're dealing with text data, we count. We don't sum, we don't average, we don't use average, we don't use mean, we don't use max. So we count, right? And to count that, you're going to drop that particular column again in the values. So it's going to count everything. That simply means 4 customer canceled, 1,400 closed, lost, enrolled, we have 1,800, prospect, we have 5,500, right? So let me go ahead and expand this real quick so you guys can see. Perfect. So now if you're asked to show this data in the charts by showing maybe like in hierarchy from the highest to the lowest, the next thing you want to do is select the cell, right click, and you want to sort, right? And now we want to sort by largest to smallest. So once you click on that, it automatically sorts the data for you, right? And now we want to represent this in the charts. That's going to stand as our dashboard, right? So I'll go ahead and add a new cell. And now I just want to fill this cell with what we call a color, right? We want to act like this is our dashboard. And I want to select, I selected the whole cell. I colored the whole cell and it's blue. So let's go back to the pivot table. Now I want to copy this, Control C, and I want to paste it right here. So let me go ahead and rename this and call it like a dashboard. And now I want to paste it right here. So every time you want to paste, there are 2 ways you paste. If you select paste, it's going to paste it exactly with the formulas, with the formatting and all that. However, if you only want the values, you want to click on paste special and we want to select paste values, right? I don't know why it's not showing paste values, but that's what we want to select. So I'll go ahead and click on paste special, paste values. It's not showing me. Let me paste it right here. Anyways, let me just copy this, Control C. I'll just paste it right here, just for the sake of time. And now we want to represent this in the charts, right? So now we have this as in a tabular format. We want to represent it in the charts. So we're going to make sure we're selecting it just like this. And now we want to click on inserts. Now we want to select, we have all the various charts we want. We want to select the column charts, because that's the best way to represent ranking or distribution, right? So now we're representing it this way. So this is going to be the first on our dashboard. And now you see, just by looking at this, you can clean up your charts. I can go ahead and double click on this. Yeah, double click. And once you select the line, you can delete the line. Yeah, you can delete the line, you can increase the size, but I want to add the data label, which is the actual numbers. So I want to add that on there, and I want to delete this one just to have more room. So now you have more room. You can increase the size as well, but I mean, for the sake of time, we don't have all that time. So now this is showing us like the stages, and you can rename it, right? So just double click on this and you write, sorry, customer stages. So you can rename it whatever you want to call it. Just be creative with your titles and all that. So once you're done, you have that one up and running. You can delete this if you don't want it. I don't want it, so I'll just go ahead and delete it. Select the whole cell, delete. Perfect. So let's go to the next one. Sorry, the pivot table. So to create another pivot, we're just gonna go ahead and we can select the whole pivot again. So for instance, we wanna see the performance by states, right? So in this context, we have the state right here and we wanna see maybe the performance by, by states, but we wanna see the top 5 states. So I'm gonna drag the states and I'm gonna drop it in the column. I'm not gonna drop it in the column, sorry. I wanna drop it on the stages, the rows. So now I wanna take the stages back to the column because I know the states is like super lengthy, right? So now we have this, and if the question says we wanna see just the top 5 states, so we wanna go ahead and select the cell, right click, not right now, and now we wanna click on filters. We wanna select top 10. So top 10, we want to change it to top 5, right? By count of stage, right? That's what we want. If you ask the bottom 5 or the lowest performing, that means we're talking about bottom, you're going to come right here and you're going to replace it with bottom. But in this case, we want to see the top 5. So I'm going to click on it and it gives us the actual data we want, right? So you can still go ahead and replace that, putting it or the other way, so just to like have everything concise, right? So now we have everything we want. I can represent this in the charts by clicking on inserts, and I'm gonna click on maybe your charts. I can just use this, the bar charts, the stacked bar, and it's going to represent everything for us in the chart. You can sort the same way we did to do it top to bottom, largest to smallest, and all that stuff. So now I've created my chart. I want to copy and I want to paste it right here in the dashboard. So you can always like play around with it, try to like make sure things are highlighted properly, and you just keep doing stuff like that. So the next one we want to do is we want to see the performance by, let's do the trend, right? So every time we talk about trend, we're talking about dates, period. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna select this, so you can always use the same sheet you've done. All you need to do is replace the values. So I'm gonna take out the stage, and in this context, I wanna put the dates. Right, so I don't want the stage, I'm just gonna have it like this. So every time you use the stage, sorry, the date in Excel, sorry, in pivot table, it categorizes it for you into 2, right? It groups it either by month or by date. For this one, let's just go ahead and use the months. So we wanna see performance by month, right? So I'm just gonna select this, Control C. I'm gonna copy and paste values. Yeah, paste values so that way I can clean it up. So you see when you paste the values, it's going to take out all the cells because I want to take out this thing that says 10, 11, right? And I want to take out the bottom, the one that says the grand total. So now I want to rename this as months, and I want to rename this as stages. So now we can represent this with what we call the pie chart. The pie chart or the donut chart is best when you have categories that are less than 5 or less than 5. So we have only 3 right here. So the best chart is going to be the pie chart. So we have 10 more minutes and we're done. So we're going to go ahead. I want to select the donut charts and voila, represent it. And you can always switch it. See, it gives you like different ones. You can come right here, change whatever you want, but let's just use this just because of time. Control C, and I'm gonna paste it right here. Oh shit, it's Control C. What happened? Control Z. So you can always go back to default by selecting Control Z. So keep that at the bottom of back of your mind. So let me paste that one right here. Control V. Yeah, perfect. So this is what I want. I'm just going to increase the size. Just make your feet nice and clean. So the last one I want to have, I want to put it right here. Let me move. The last one I want is going to be the trend. So I just want to see the trend. So every time we're dealing with trend, we're talking about dates, right? So I'm just going to delete this. We already have this. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the same stuff I did before. Copy this, Control C, and I'm going to paste it right here. Control V. So this is just for your rough work, the pivot table. That's where you do your rough work. So now I'm going to take out the stage and I want to put the dates. Remember, every time you put the dates, it gives you the months and the dates. But in this context, we want to use the actual dates. So I'm going to take out the months. Remember the first one, we did the actual months. So now we have this right here. I can go ahead and select the whole cell by clicking on the first one, and hold the command key, shift, enter. And it's going to select that, and you can do, I was supposed to do it for both. Select the both, and you copy everything, control, and now we want to paste that. So we want to represent this in the charts. Let me just go ahead and represent this. Click on insert, and we want to click on the trend. So here's the line charts. You can select any one that works for you, and voila, you got this. So just by looking at this line, you can tell the highest is on this day. So me talking through, I'll be like, oh, we got the total number of 11,000 stages. However, we got the highest customer on December 6th. And the lowest, you're going to find out where we got the lowest by looking at the data point. Control C and Control V, I'll paste it right here. Good. So you see how what we've done just like in less than 2 hours. That's why they expect you, once you get on the job, they don't expect you to need like years or months to like get familiar with whatever you're doing, right? So now we have all this nice and clean. The next thing is we want to add a title. So let me go ahead and add a title and call it Data Enrollments, Data Analysis Dashboard. So once you have a title, you see where the title is, it's only on the C, column C. To spread it out so that way it can be all the way to like the dashboard, you want to select the whole cell. Sorry. We want to select the whole cell, and we want this to be actually merged and center, to put it in the center. So it's going to break down all those lines that you see A, B, C, is just going to put it in the center. So now you see where it moved to the center. Now we can go ahead, increase the size to whatever we want. We can make it bold. We can also go ahead and add the color, a different color, just to like make it pop a little bit. Something like this, right? And if we don't want the spaces in between, you can go ahead and delete, right click, delete, and also do the same thing for the second one. And it gives you the dashboard, right? So the next thing is, how can we interact with the dashboard? For instance, we want, when you click on this right now, when you click on this, you see how it just goes ahead and just selects just one cell. However, that's not what we want. So here's what we want. We want to be able to add what we call the slicer. So let's go back to this. We want to click on inserts, and we want to insert the slicer. Sorry, let's go back to 5 more minutes. Pivot table, yeah. So we want to insert the slicer. So to insert the slicer, just click on insert slicer, and we want to be able to drill down by the cities, physical city. Click on OK, and it automatically creates what we call the slicer. So I'm going to copy this, but let me copy this first, and I'll paste it right here. So I can expand this all the way leave my way. And you can expand it right here. So you can add the dates, you can drill down by dates, you can drill down by state, whatever works for you, right? So now we have this looking nice and clean. And let's see what happens when we select like the cities. So I want to select this and watch what happens. It's only reflecting on the line charts, right? So to have it reflect on the whole chart, we want to click on this icon. Oh, go back here. So we want to select, we want to click on this. Make sure it's on, sorry. It's just hanging. It doesn't want us to finish this. Okay, cool. So now let's right click on this little icon right here. And we want to select report connections. And now this is only highlighted to one of the charts. So you want to make sure you're selecting everything. So once we click on OK, let's go back to our dashboard. So you see how it's affecting like the whole chart. However, I think it's still 4. Let me go back here and see what we have. Report connections. Yeah, just to make sure we're selecting everything. Okay. Okay, let me start with California because I know we have a lot for California. Perfect. So let me go ahead and go all the way to C. Yeah, so now it's interacting with like the whole dashboard. So every time you click, if the state has any count, it's going to reflect on the whole dashboard. So that is how you add slicer to your dashboard. Let me see if we can add the states just to like make things work out perfectly fine. Insert, and I want to insert a slicer. Sorry for this one. Insert a slicer, and let's just insert a slicer for the months. Yeah, let's use the months. So yes, you can use Excel for dashboards and stuff. However, Excel has a lot of limitation. That's why they introduced what we call the Power BI and Tableau, because a lot of the stuff are still manual in Excel, and you can see how slow it is, especially when you're working with like super lengthy data. So that's why they introduced the BI tools, which is either Tableau or Power BI, right? But other than that, that's all we have for today. So let me just go ahead, remove this back to default. You guys are gonna get everything. You can select, now you can add your slicer, but make sure you are always reporting the connection for all the charts by selecting everything. And now you can go back and slice and dice your data and get the actual stuff, okay? So let me give you guys time for questions and answer. Yeah, I did it right in time. So now you have a dashboard. We created this in 1 hour. If we select October, it's going to show us performance in October, and it's going to reflect on the whole data sets. Okay. So now we have everything nice and clean. You can take out the filter by clicking on this to clear all the filters. And voila, let me make sure I save this before I send it to you guys. Okay, so let me go back to my Zoom and see if we have questions, answers, and see what I can do in like the next. I'll stop sharing. And now let me see the questions we have. I'm gonna unmute everybody. You guys have like 15 minutes, which is right in time. And I can unmute everybody and you guys can talk. So trust me, there's a lot on data analysis. That's a lot. This is just the introduction.
Thanks so much. I really
Oh, yes.
appreciate.
Someone said, sorry, real quick. Someone said you omitted the lookup sheet. Okay, let me just do that real quick because that's a very important one. We're going to use VLOOKUP all the time. So here's a scenario. Every time you work with a relational database is basically a table with rows and columns, right? So that's where we store data. A relational database stores data in a database, right? Things like the Microsoft SQL Server, things like Oracle, things like Postgres, MySQL. So this data was actually pulled out from our database where we have the customers, and for the e-commerce store, we have the customer data and we have the sales data. However, you see how we have the customer data and we only have the customer information. So if the question says something like, we want to see, and on the sales data, we have transactions. If the question says something like, we want to see maybe like the customer ages and the sales, how do you think we can go about it? Because on this table, we don't have transactions, but on this table, we have what we call the transaction. So the first thing you always do, because in real world, we work with multiple data, right? So how do you create a relationship between the two tables or multiple tables? Every time you have to create a relationship between the table, because you need to create a relationship for them to talk to each other. Before you can get the ages and the sales, there needs to be a relationship, right? So to do that, the first thing you want to look for is, what column do I have in this table that I can find in the second table, right? We don't have profit. We don't have quantity in this table. The only thing we have in this table that we can find in this table is this ID. So I'm just going to go ahead and color this. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Oh, I wasn't sharing my screen before, sorry. So the only thing we have in this table that we can find in this table is just this ID. Right in the sales table, they call it ID, but in the customer table, it's called customer ID. Keep in mind, you don't need to have the same name. You just need to find out what we have on both, right? So now, oh, this thing is hanging. So now, how can we pull in the sales data from here into the customer table? That's where we use the VLOOKUP. I don't know why this is hanging right now. Okay, so use VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP is super tricky and it's kind of a little technical, but we're just going to do it. We only have 5 minutes to cover that, right? So to use VLOOKUP, so now the goal is we want to see the sales by customers, but we need to pull the sales data into, the sales column into the customer data. So you put the equal sign, and now we want to type VLOOKUP. Yeah, there's something wrong. It's not pulling it up. Open your bracket. Every time you're looking up a value, you want to start. So the lookup value is going to be the value under the column that is identical in both columns, right? So for this example, the value is under the customer ID. So we want to select the first one, comma, and now we want to click on the sales table because the next thing says the table. So just go ahead, click on the sales table. It pulls that off for you. And now it says the column I am index column. So that means it's asking you to select from that similar column, which is right here. And we want to stop here because we only need the sales. If you need the quantity, you want to move further, but we need only the sales, you want to stop there. And now you want to count 1, 2, right? So now you have that, you're going to put 2. If you stopped at the quantity, you're going to get 3, right? So once you put the index number, the final thing always ends in false. So that simply means you're telling Excel to go into this table, look for this ID number between this column and give us the exact value, which is the matching value. That's why you stopped at 2. So you're saying, give us the value from the ID that matches to this one, which is number 2. Click on enter and it automatically gives you the value. To fill that up, I don't know why my Excel is acting up. The same thing, just select the whole stuff, make sure it's right here, double click and it fills everything. So now you can drill down age by sales, and the same thing, you can bring in the next table, which is quantity, profits, and you can bring in any table into any table by creating a relationship. But with Excel, we call it VLOOKUP. For if you're using SQL database, we call it joins. Okay, so it is a lot of work. I mean, it's something that requires a lot of practice. So the more you practice, the better you become. Okay, so for the sake of time, that's where we're going to end. So I'll just give you guys 10 minutes for questions because I have another meeting right after this. So I can stop sharing and you guys can ask questions if you got.
Yeah, thanks so much, Toby. I don't know if anybody can just go ahead to ask question.
Yeah, if you have questions, good. You guys feeling overwhelmed? You guys feeling like it's a lot of work? I mean, this is the best way for you guys to decide if the field is maybe for you. Because this is like the simplest part when you get to Excel. Sorry, when you start going into Power BI, SQL, Python, those are really intense, which requires a lot of practice. It's as simple as that. The more you practice, the better you become.
Hi. At the moment, I think we're overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. So I need to go and practice and come back for my own question.
yeah, that's how it is. Yeah, I mean, everybody gets that, especially when something is new.
Like, I need to practice, then come and ask.
Yeah, so what I can do for you guys, if anyone is willing to practice, go ahead and do that. And I'm going to drop my email so you guys can ask me questions directly. So it's like I'm providing you guys free mentorship just to use the best of your time. Like, try as much as possible to do this. And if you can do this perfectly, turn it in. So it's just like you're trying to replicate what I did. You want to create a dashboard, right? You can come up with stuff. And I can assign a task for you whereby I give you like the exact thing I want you to come up with, just to see how things like this, you're hired maybe in a company and we want you to like drill down the data and all that. And I can provide you guys the questions just like what we do for our students, and we have them work on the tax, right? So something like this, we want you to join the age, the segment, and the region together. We want you to show the total number of sales with category. We want you to create a category called excellent, good, respectively. Things like this, just to see how much you can grasp of it, because I know a lot of you guys watch a lot of videos on YouTube, but it's not going to help you if you're not practicing. You just want to sit down 3 hours watching people do stuff and you don't want to do it. No. So once you finish doing it and you feel like, oh, I think I want to try something, it's all about you trying. I can send you tasks. I can write specifically what you need to do, like questions like this. Okay, I want you to show me. I'll give you a different data set. I want you to show me the top 5, the bottom 5. I want you to do this, do that, just to see how much you're catching up with like what you've like practiced on.
Thanks so much. From my own end, before we start practicing, there are some things that I'm unable to catch up with when you were doing it. So when are you going to put up the video and how are you going to access it?
Yeah, so like that's the first thing. So everything you were unable to catch up with, once you start watching the video, you're gonna, I mean, you can listen at your own pace and you can go at your own pace, right? So you're gonna get the video between now and Thursday. And once you get the video, you can watch the video. Sorry, between now and tomorrow, I want you guys to like catch up with the stuff. So between now and tomorrow, I'll try to like send the video as soon as Zoom sends it to me anyways. So once, because right now it's still 12 noon. So once you get it, you start watching it. Yeah, you can catch up at your own pace, because there's no how you can always catch up with the teacher because she has like years of experience. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much. And lastly,
okay, Adam, you're
hello.
saying something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, lastly, when you're posting the video, can you just put a tags to it so we can use to practice after we watch the video? Maybe you can add a tags to it.
So the first, like I said, this is a tax on its own. So it's going to be part of the stuff I'm sending you. So after you do your stuff, and if you can attend to this tax, which I'm going to tweak because I've showed you guys a lot of stuff. So I'm just going to change the tax. So definitely this workbook is going to come with a task. So that's how you practice. You see, like, if you can attempt the task and see how good you can do that.
Wow, thank you very much, Tobe, even though I came in very, very late, and
Okay.
I really appreciate your time. Though I was listening in the background, but I was not fully involved, but I think in the last 30 minutes, I've been able to flow with some things, and I really enjoyed the class. Thank you very, very, very much for your time. You know, this is not something we can get easily even on WhatsApp.
Yeah,
Like
you
I have,
guys, this still, let me
even
be
on,
honest, out here, this is $600 for our students. So I'm just giving it to you
wow.
guys because I know you
Yeah,
guys out
that's,
here.
oh, I
And
even
the
said
class is
500.
like, yeah,
I even said
$600, and the class is
$500.
like,
Wow,
it's
wow,
like 9 hours
wow,
class. Yeah, non-stop.
wow, wow.
So
Thank
you
you
guys are
very much.
getting that for free, and it's really gonna help you if you
Yeah.
practice to like kickstart your whole career.
Wow, thank you very much for this. We really appreciate. And
And also,
anybody
one
that
thing
is,
I want
yeah,
to say, sorry, one thing I want to say,
okay,
depending on how you guys respond. If you guys are, if I see that you guys are putting in effort, I can try to do another one for Power BI for you guys, maybe next month, based on the response I get. But if out of everybody that attended, I saw the number and only 2 or 3 people or 5 people sent back their tax, then I think like there's no point maybe doing like the Power BI or Tableau with you guys. Okay. So
okay,
based
yeah.
on how you guys respond and if I see how enthusiastic you guys are, yeah, I can do another one maybe sometimes next month just for Power BI, and I can just do that, continue with that like maybe once a month for you guys.
Well, thank you very much today. And everyone on the training today, actually, they registered for it. They sent in an essay to show how much they really want the Excel. So we did not give everybody the link.
Yeah.
So I think
Good.
that's why we actually look for people that are very, very interested. And
Oh yeah,
I
that's
think
what I want. Even in the
about
full
25
class
people about
registered.
25 people sent in their registered.
Yeah.
So, and I
Good.
think 20 were here. Some messaged me that they're having issues maybe with
Oh, great.
internet and they are begging for the video. So I'm
Yeah.
very sure that the people that are connected to this class, they will surely revert, you know, they're going to do the exercise and revert back. And I'm very sure of that. So all of them are interested and we really
Right.
enjoy your class. Like, this is beautiful. Thank you very, very
So
much.
what I was gonna even say, I was gonna say at the end of the whole stuff, I'm gonna email you directly, so that way you can send me the list. Cause it's kind of like I'm gonna be providing you guys like the set of people that started maybe like on a monthly basis, maybe mentorship, right? So I want to have the list like in our own database, and that way I can help schedule the whole stuff. And also that way everyone I can send the general email, you all can have my email directly, just like reach out and whatever. So Sam, I'm going to email you on that so that way. And also, I want to read their essay and stuff. However, with the Power BI or the next class, you're still going to throw it open. We're just going to lock those people in that already joined, and we can get more
Okay.
people. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, this is what I will do. I will forward all their emails to you so you can read them and
No,
like
you
a
don't
lot
need
of
to
them.
forward
Yeah.
the email. If you use I think the best way is always to use the Google forms, and that way you can just
Okay.
share with my
Okay.
email.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how
Okay.
we
That's
always do
what.
it when we
Yeah.
partner up. Yeah. So just
Okay.
share
That's
the
good.
email,
That's
the
good.
forms with me. I can read everything myself there.
Okay. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to
All
do
right,
that.
guys.
Yeah. Thank you
I am
very much
out
today.
here willing to like help you guys
Thanks so much.
in every area of data analysis. And trust me, the field is booming. The pay rates is great. And you guys don't even know where you're going to find yourself in the next 3-5 years. It can be out of Nigeria. And trust me, out here to get a training for that minimum of $4,000. So you guys don't even need to invest that much. Not just here, but in Canada, the UK, they're super expensive. So these are the things you guys are getting for free. I just urge you guys to use the best out of it, period.
Thanks so much. We're grateful.
All right, I know. All right, guys, bye. I got to hop on the next meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bye
Bye,
bye.
Toby. Thank
Okay,
you.
bye-bye.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye-bye. Stop
Bye bye.
recording.